Matt, thanks for having us out this morning.
I talk over you when we're done.
Bless America.
Chef Matt Krenz's connection to food and farming developed while growing up in the South. During summers with his grandparents in Georgia, he learned pickling, canning, and preserving skills, memories that still fuel his connection to local food communities of farming and artisan food suppliers. He currently leads the culinary program for the Asbury in the Dunhill Hotel in Charlotte as executive chef, and on his days off, he also works his family's small, sustainable Krenz beef ranch, which also supplies all the beef for the Asbury's menu. Before the Asbury, Chef Matt was executive sous chef under Chef Luca at Passionate Bistro in Fort Mill, South Carolina.
Matt, thanks for having us out this morning, man. Boy, that took a long time.
Yeah.
This interview, I mean. How's life?
Good.
Yeah?
Good. Going really well. Yeah. I'm ready for it to start cooling back down.
A little warm in here today.
Yeah.
How old is this building?
The building was built in '29, so old.
Right.
I think. Yeah.
I think that's a good word to describe it. This is really sort of your first major helm job, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is the first time that I'm kind of really running the ship and in the spotlight doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah.
How's it feel?
Weird. Very weird. Yeah, because I mean, you're so used to being the guy in the shadows and just kind of trying to be the glue binding everything together, and then you go from that to people say hi to you.
Right.
You know? All right, gentlemen. Today we're going to be offering the Krenz Ranch beef sirloin. That's going to be our blackboard special. Charcuterie, we're doing the lamb sopressata, the andouille, and the country ham. Chili dog, anything? You want to add anything to the party? Chili dog's not an option.
So you were already doing a lot of the creative part at that point, or had a lot of collaboration involved with Chris before you took over the spot here.
Yeah, it was one of the things where I added value to the business, and you know, anytime you have a restaurant that people are kind of constantly scrutinizing or putting under the microscope, you got to bring your A game every time. And Chris brought me on because the creative side is something I think that I definitely can bring to the table, and I think that it was really, really cool of him to let me express it a little bit more instead of trying to just say, this is the way we're doing things. I've never really considered that to be who Chris Coleman is as a chef. I mean, he's always been nothing but kind and great to me since day one. I think he thought I was a little bit of a jerk the first time I met him.
He thought you were?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Funny.
I don't even see that one.
So the first time I ever met Chris was right before we were getting ready to do like the spring home show or something. And his son had just been born, or was like right around a year old, and it was backstage, and I was just this brand new guy who just came in. I had literally worked at Passionate for maybe a week and a half, and Luca's telling me I'm doing this like whole cooking demo on stage and everything. And so nervous, you know, barely scratches the surface of where my mindset was. I'm just like going over in my head, how am I going to cook this? What am I doing on stage? And, you know, you get there and there's 20, 30 people, so it's really not a big deal.
Right.
But before that, there is no calm before that storm for the first time you're doing it. So I think I probably could have come off a little bit of an asshole.
Is this something he told you?
Yes. Yeah.
He was like,
he was
like you guys are having beers, and he's like, man, I'm really glad to have you in my kitchen. By the way, when I first met you, I thought you were a dick.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Good job, Coleman.
Yeah. No, but I think that's a testament to his character. Like, that first time you get to know somebody isn't always exactly who that person is. He's willing to scratch under the surface a little bit more and really get to know that person. There absolutely is baby carrots. We have some. If you walk, like right when you walk in, straight ahead, just to the right a little bit, there's lime basil. Go ahead and bring that up. And then I think there's another, they're all in fish bins right there.
You were cooking out in Durham for a while as well, right?
Yeah, so I was up in the Triangle area for a little over 4 years, and I was there for a while. A majority of that stint, I moved up there. I was working for Compass Group and ended up being the executive chef at branch, an offshoot of National Institute of Health, which was weird because I had to go through like 3 things of security before I could even get to my kitchen. So
Wow.
it's like real kind of creepy testing facility for a lot of stuff. So, but I understood that that wasn't my long term, and I talked to one of my chefs there, and he was like, there's one of 2 people you need to go work for. And I had heard one of the chefs was really kind of backing off, like letting off the gas pedal a little bit. He wasn't as into still culturing and training and grooming that next level of chef. And
Right.
Shane definitely, that was his passion. I mean, he was that person who just wanted that next person to be better than he was. And I mean, you saw it every day in the way that he approached the kitchen, and that camaraderie in that kitchen was second to none. I still hope that someday, I'll have a kitchen where that team and that family is as close knit as that kitchen was.
But have you adopted that? Because I mean, Coleman's is a lot like that. Not necessarily. I mean, I'm vaguely familiar with some, like, stories of Shane. I don't know him personally, but I do know Chris personally. They both seem to foster better cooks, or want to foster better cooks, but in much different ways.
Sure.
So do you fall more towards the Shane or more towards the Chris? With Chris being the much more relaxed, easygoing, and Shane being much more, when people think of a chef working at a beard level, sort of under my thumb kind of Rolling Stones-ish thing.
Yeah, so I like to think that I've kind of cultured my own coaching style. And a big part of that for me is I don't like to micromanage people.
Amen
Because
to that.
any time that we get people in, if we do our hiring process right, we should have a basic fundamental level of trust to give them the rope that they need to be successful. How they choose to handle that success is up to them. I'll pull people aside if I see that they're not living up to the expectations and kind of walk them through why I think they can be better. And then also kind of coach them on how I build flavors. Those are big things for me. I'm gonna get these a little thicker.
A little thicker?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Because when I go through, I want to have to,
You want it to crunch?
I want a little bit more resistance in that.
Yeah, chef.
You have a pretty decent sized staff here.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
Yeah,
so I would say
I just
it's
got the
average.
other joke.
No, no, it's we have, let's see, because we do breakfast for the hotel, and then we do lunch, and we do dinner service. So dinner service, I typically have 3 cooks with somebody overseeing, in the past, and it's usually myself or Mike who can skip around and give hands where hands are needed. We've been a little bit more brigade and less new age in the kitchen, where it's like, okay, you're gonna have this plate, and you're gonna have, we're like, okay, you're doing proteins,
Right.
and you're doing vegetables, and you're on garde manger, and
I think with a kitchen this size, I think it just dictates better to do it that way.
yeah, we can push things around if we're feeling a pinch. We try not to overseat the dining room for that reason, because again, there's 3 people and everything is cooked to order. We try to do everything the right way, the best that I know how. And that can cause some logistical issues in a kitchen that size, and having the right people in the right place, I think, is definitely something that I've learned to adapt to. Setting people up for success is a true management gift. To understand what makes people tick and how to make them want to be in that position, man, if you can start figuring that stuff out, then the rest of it just eventually gets greased up really, really well.
Sure, but I think too, from the management point is, if you're unwilling to recognize where you didn't set them for success, so you dress them for failure and don't acknowledge it,
Right.
well, you lose the staff real quick, I think.
Hey gentlemen, let's make sure we tidy this up, scrub this down, get it all ready to go before service. Thank you.
Are you doing room service here as
Yeah,
well?
so we do room service. We have 4 banquet rooms. We do bar service, which is a different menu, plus the dining room. you can't prepare yourself enough for what it's like to be in a hotel.
Right.
And this is a small hotel
Yeah.
by all standards. I mean, there's 60 rooms here. And it seems, when I first started here, it was so deflating when you're sitting there and you've got like 4, 5, 6 tickets of tasting menus hanging, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, burger midwell coming in, you know, and then the guys are just like, oh, shit. You know, like I was working on these 30 plates. Now I've got to do a burger.
Yep.
And so the people that I have with me understand, you know, what exactly is taking place in this space and how important all of it is, not just the people coming for the experience of a tasting menu. Like, they put the same love into the burger as they do into, you know, whatever it happens to be for that tasting menu. So I think that definitely is pretty cool. The deviled eggs tonight, we're doing a little bit of a succotash, same from last night. A little boiled peanut, that's the ham hock boiled peanut that Chef Daniel brought, with a little roasted garlic powder and some romesco.
So tell me a little bit about what you're doing now with the food here. You seem like a guy that's constantly progressing as a chef.
Yeah, so one thing that I think is really important, especially for us here with our dinner menu, is a constant evolution. Being in the restaurant industry, from the business side of it, you understand that there's got to be a few things that people can rely on when they come back, and we'll tend to always have a play or riff on some of those items.
Do you guys do steak here?
I think so. Yeah, well, not always steak, but
Right.
There's definitely beef of some kind. But I think it's important to challenge the guys to think outside the box. And I want our team to feel like they're in a comfortable space where they can experiment with food. It's something that I've been fortunate enough to be in a kitchen where I was told, you can go out and buy any ingredient you want. I will pay you back for it. And you just play with it. It'll be that night's amuse-bouche, or, you know, whatever
Right.
it happens to be. If it's really good, it'll be a special. But to feel like taken care of as a young cook and feel like you can really branch out and experiment with food, like, man, for those people that are passionate and really, truly, like, want to learn, there's nothing better. So, you know, we break our menus up with the seasons, and we'll have a early summer and a late summer. So, you know, about every 2 months, really, we find ourselves changing the menu.
I think what I really, because it was funny, I'm like, oh, you seem like a type of chef that wants to evolve, like the rest of us don't, right? What's been exciting you lately as far as like a technique or ingredient outside of, like, we're about ready to hit tomato season, obviously. You had some beautiful ones.
Yeah, so I feel so fortunate to be around so many great farmers because they're bringing us the best product, and I have to be the ambassador for that beautiful product. So something that's been really tough for me is to harness and like settle in a little bit and just let beautiful ingredients shine through, because sometimes that beauty and simplicity doesn't get played up enough here, because jokes on everybody else, a lot of times we do have better products than them. And I know you support a lot of the local farmers too, so you understand when you're getting a beautiful product, sometimes a tomato should just be a tomato.
Yeah. It's hard sometimes. I mean, as a younger chef, I think that was the hardest thing for me to do, was to rein in wanting to throw everything at it.
Right.
Like, this tomato deserves all of this. And sometimes it just deserves some salt.
Right. And that's something that's been incredibly challenging for me since I took over, just because when I came in, I knew that creative side was something that I was really like, that's why Chris brought me on, I think. And so I kind of maybe overdid it. And so since then, I've been able to kind of take a step back and say, okay, you know, that's what I wanted, but we don't always do what we want. We have to cater to our guests. I mean, ultimately, it's what they want, because
it's a restaurant business.
Right. It is. It is a business at the end of the day, and to try and gauge the guest and try and really understand what they're looking for can be challenging here. I mean, Charlotte is broken into so many different pockets, and people tend to stick to their pockets.
Yeah.
From everything that I've seen, you know, South Park stays in South Park, and Dilworth stays in Dilworth, and South End stays in South End, Noda. You know, there's just people move to those places because that's where they want to be.
The great American, great American, great American chocolate factory.
So I didn't know, like, number one, I didn't know that your father worked for Hershey, which is, I mean, that's pretty cool. Right?
Yeah.
So was he like chocolate daddy?
Oh, so he has the biggest sweet tooth out of anybody I've ever met in my entire life. So it's great that he works for a candy company. And as a kid growing up, we were like essentially
popular?
forced. Well, this is not a face that's popular ever. So we always had a surplus or like a candy closet, you know, like a walk-in closet just lined with, you know, everything but the Oompa Loompa essentially. And you grow to hate it.
I was gonna
It sounds
say-
terrible, but it's not special anymore.
Right.
You know, as a kid, I think you're so, it means so much more to you because you only get it that one Saturday after whatever event. And then all of a sudden you're 32 and you don't ever want to eat candy again.
So do you don't really eat chocolate?
I don't, man. I don't eat a lot of stuff like that. Even when I was kind of working on desserts and doing pastry, I always tried to balance it out with some form of salt or savory item.
Right.
And it's my personal preference. I mean,
I feel you on that one. I'm not a big
not-
sweet tooth
yeah,
guy.
just not big into sweets.
I thought just because of the ranch thing, like that was like the whole background. Like that was it. Like, you guys were just ranchers and that's how it went.
No, so growing up, really, my dad worked and he traveled a lot and lived in Atlanta, lived in Tampa, lived in Houston, and then eventually we made our way back to North Carolina. And when we moved back to North Carolina, my dad really decided, okay, this is time. The kids are getting older. It's time to start sharing those traditions that our family have had for so long. It's time to start passing those things down to them. And a large part of that was, you know, I think my dad said we can trace back 6 or 7 generations that have been beef cattle farmers, which, you know, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so that was something that was really important to him to kind of teach us that process and the process that our family's been doing for years. That also means at 15, 16 years old, you're out there driving T-posts and stretching fence and doing all these things that, sure, there's a lot of kids out there across the country that are doing these things, but you start talking some of the bigger cities, nobody knows what you're talking about. They have no clue.
No, I mean, even still, I mean, there are kids doing it, but what's the percentage?
Yeah, that percentage is
Just lower.
tiny.
Yeah.
Because it's 1% in agriculture, and
Yeah.
how much of that is in commercialized agriculture? So
Not family farms. So you guys were about 15, 16 when you first started doing the cattle?
Moved here in 2002, so that would have put me about 16, almost 17 years old. And I want to say it was shortly thereafter that we started building farmland and actually clearing land and getting stuff ready to go for cows. And we started with a real small herd, only had about 10 head out of the gate. And there was a 54-acre plot of land that we had down in Wadesboro. And that was really our first diving headfirst into this whole agriculture thing. And there were some hits and some misses, and we've learned a little bit along the way. Cows aren't always docile. You learn quick to respect the animal because
they got a little rough streak in them.
yeah, and you have a big difference. You know, smaller calves could be 100 pounds, you know, 140 pounds, and then bulls can be 2,000, you know, and so you get stuck in like a little 12 by 12 pen with a 2,000-pound animal. It makes you start putting things in perspective pretty quickly, and you start to really appreciate it a lot more. The people who are doing it right, and that was really a big impetus for me to latch on to the people doing it right in Charlotte,
Right.
and chefs included, to try and want to know them a little bit more.
Right.
But local farmers, getting to the farmers market, getting to know the people around town who put emphasis on the people doing it right.
All right. Sit, cow. It's okay. It's okay, girls. Hey, it's okay.
So now you guys are you're you're calving all the way through.
Yeah,
right?
so we have, it's called a cow-calf operation, and essentially we don't just go buy calves and raise them to slaughter. What we are doing is breeding, essentially. We get good genes. We try to make sure that we carry on those good genes to breed a great quality product. And so, you know, we're using a certified Angus bull. And then our females can be, we have a few Simmentals. Those were very first crop. But most of them are Hereford cross, and some of them are Angus Hereford cross. Some of them are Angus semi-cross. And just like you would suspect, the different breeds yield different results. So like our semis have a much wider frame, and so you get longer loins. Like you have your strip and ribeye tend to be a little longer, a little bigger. We're getting bone-in 23 pound for a ribeye.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so for a whole rib loin, it's 23, 24 pound product for some of those, which
About 5 to 8 pounds bigger than what you would expect to buy from a commodity, right? Is that about average?
Yeah, and you know, there's some other things that go into that. We do have those bones. We do have that little bit of cap on there. So some of it's fat, some of it's in the bone. But for my dad, I mean, this is kind of like his resurgence into cattle farming. And so for him, he's still learning a little bit too, even though he did it growing up.
Sure.
He wasn't the one doing it, even though he was out there pretty regularly.
So tell me a little bit about what we're looking at here. You know,
So-
we always ask, we
Yeah.
always say, hey, bring something that's important. And, you know, you never know what you're going to get.
Right, and so, you know,
This is the first time I've seen this show up.
so Calvin and Hobbes, like that was my childhood, man. Everything about Calvin and Hobbes is like what I want to be. And like it taught me to be curious and how important it was to approach life from a curious perspective. And so like this for me just represents utter curiosity and maintaining and sustaining that state of consciousness. And for me, you know, if you can't just pick one of these up and just whatever you're doing immediately feel better, I think you need to take a step back and just like reevaluate where you are and what you're doing in life.
I think it's so brilliantly simply done that if you don't immediately immerse into what's going on, like you're fully not engaged as a human. I don't think.
Right. And then this one, so I did a class with Brian Polson, and this is one of his books, Salumi. This is his second book. And so the whole program that I did with him was based off of whole hog, whole animal butchery, and then using every single scrap of meat and piece of the animal through curing a lot for him, which obviously in a very 2-week window you can't cure a lot. But I will tell you, we made fresh sausages, we made cured sausages, we did salamis, like the pre-ferments, and even culatellos and hams and all of it. We did every single piece that you would associate with his other book, Charcuterie. But the thing that I took away from this experience and the thing that resonates so much with me and Brian Polson is you don't waste anything. And that's, when I first started here, I took that to the extreme. Like I would get so freaking angry that people would waste something, or people would like not treat this cut of meat with the same love and honest intent that they would treat like a ribeye or a strip or a tenderloin or whatever it happened to be. And I've learned to kind of try and take a step back now, and maybe not treat them that way, because they haven't gone through the things that I've gone through to see it from my perspective.
Right.
And so now I try to take a more educational approach and like pull them to the side and kind of under your wing and say, here's why I think that this is important, and I would like for you to at least learn a little bit more about it, educate yourself a little bit more about it, and ultimately, hopefully you'll understand where I'm coming from. So the last thing, and this definitely speaks to what you and I kind of dove into a little bit. It's called the tradition, and this is something that was given to me from my aunt and uncle who are still out in Oklahoma and still live it like the real farm life. Like this is like they have like 1,200 acres or so out there. There's a big land plots. It's way different out there.
But they're dealing with like BLM and all that stuff too, right? Like, are they like a big time ranchers? When I say big
Yes
time,
and
I mean,
no.
when I say big time, I mean big operation, not big time as in like, woo, you know.
No, it's just they have a lot of land. Like some of it's family land, some of it they've acquired over the years and stuff like that. But I just think that scale and scope are so different out there because of availability and accessibility. You know.
Yeah. We don't have
here.
cattle here because we don't have that kind of grazing land.
Right. So this was given to me from them, and they gave one to my dad, and it just like it resonated so much, and it dives into, you know, how lucky and how fortunate we are because of the sacrifices and things that our families and our parents made to teach us about the importance of loving and raising cattle. And you know, that one tiny little like blip on the radar in my life of raising cattle and has definitely pushed me to go on to try and push myself. And I don't take things for granted like I used to, because I understand that there's sacrifice and there's other things that are at play constantly that we're trying to wrap our heads around, and some of it we'll never fully understand, and sometimes that's okay.
Right.
And I've learned to let things go like that, and learned when to let things go like that. Like that's such a huge lesson for me in my life. It's beautiful. Like it's something that just really struck me.
Well, I think on that note, man, I think we hit everything.
Awesome.
That was a good conversation.
Yeah, I'm really appreciative of you guys coming out and taking the time. And
Shit, you're the one that took the time.
there were words shared. I had to not do it. It's fine. We've got this beautiful backdrop with the truck and people walking, which is way worse.